Stop trying to stretch athletes' tight hamstrings. I know that sounds wrong, especially when you see a runner who can barely touch their knees, let alone their toes. But after 20 years of teaching athletes, I can tell you, forcing flexibility doesn't work. It frustrates athletes, it leads to injury, and it makes them never want to come back to your class. I'm going to show you what actually works. I'm Sage Rountree, and I have taught yoga to thousands of athletes, from weekend warriors to Olympic competitors. One of the most common challenges teachers face is working with athletes who have extremely tight hamstrings. Today, I am sharing the approach that actually works. By the end of this video, you will understand why forcing hamstring flexibility is counterproductive, what athletes actually need instead, and the exact approach I use to help even the tightest athletes find relief and function better. This is immediately applicable in your next class. Here's why the traditional approach doesn't work with athletes. You see tight hamstrings and immediately think, we need to stretch them. So you cue forward folds, emphasize lengthening, maybe even use props to help them go deeper. But here's what's actually happening. Athletes' hamstrings aren't short, they're strong and tight from repetitive use. A runner's hamstrings are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're powerful, developed, and protective. Trying to force them to lengthen is fighting against their function. When you push athletes into deep hamstring stretches, several things happen, none of them good. First, they compensate by rounding their lower backs, which creates potential for injury. Second, they feel frustrated because they can't do what you're asking. Third, they start to think yoga isn't for them because they're not flexible enough. I learned this the hard way, teaching football players. I would cue forward fold, and these guys couldn't even reach their knees. I would see them struggling, forcing, and getting nothing beneficial from the practice. And I think they would leave feeling inadequate rather than supported. So what do you do instead? 3 things. Change your goal, change your approach, and change your cueing. First, change your goal. You are not trying to make athletes flexible. You're helping them find functional range of motion and teaching them how to release chronic tension. That's completely different from forcing them into poses their bodies aren't ready for. Second, change your approach. Instead of passive stretching, use active release. Instead of holding deep stretches, use gentle movement. Instead of forcing range of motion, build it gradually through repetition and breath. Here's a practical example. Instead of a traditional forward fold where you're emphasizing length and trying to get their chest to their thighs, try this approach. Have them stand with soft knees, really soft, visibly bent. Place their hands on their thighs or use blocks at shin or knee height. Ask them to focus on moving from their hips, not from rounding their spine. And the question isn't how far can you go, it's can you maintain length in your spine while moving from your hips. The players might only move a few inches. That's perfect. They're working in a functional range that actually helps them rather than compensating in ways that create problems. Third, change your cueing. Stop using language like deepen the stretch or take it further. Instead, use cues like find a sustainable position. Notice where you feel sensation and maintain that length in your spine. Let me give you a complete framework for working with tight hamstrings. Step 1, use bent knees generously. There is no prize for straight legs. A bent knee forward fold where the spine stays long is infinitely better than a straight leg forward fold where the spine rounds, unless you're trying to stretch the back. Bent knees allow athletes to actually move from their hips, which is usually the point. Step 2, focus on hip hinge patterns, not stretching. Teach athletes to move from their hip joints while maintaining spinal integrity. This is functional for their sport and actually accessible for tight hamstrings. Think about movements like a deadlift pattern. That's the skill we're building. Step 3, use props intelligently. Props aren't just for beginners. They are tools that allow proper form. When runners place their hands on blocks in a forward fold, they can maintain spinal length instead of collapsing to reach the floor. That's better yoga, not easier yoga. Better because it involves more awareness. Step 4, incorporate active movements. Instead of holding static stretches, try gentle, dynamic movement. Have your students move in and out of the position several times, exploring their range. This teaches their nervous system that the position is safe, which is what actually creates change. Step 5, Teach self-regulation. Give athletes permission to modify based on how they feel. If your hamstrings feel worked but your spine stays long, you're in the right place. If you're rounding your back just to go further, come up until you can maintain length. This teaches them to listen to their bodies, a crucial skill for athletic performance. Amanda Freya, one of the teachers I've trained, learned this lesson at a climbing gym. She was trying to lead climbers through traditional forward folds and watching them struggle and compensate. She felt frustrated because her anatomical cues weren't working. Then she shifted her approach. She started emphasizing hip hinge patterns with bent knees. She used blocks generously. She focused on maintaining spinal length rather than achieving depth. She taught movement rather than static stretching. The change was immediate. Athletes stopped struggling. They could actually do what she was asking. Most importantly, they started feeling the benefits: better recovery, reduced tension, improved movement patterns. Today, her classes are consistently full because she learned to meet athletes where they are, rather than forcing them into shapes their bodies resist. If you want to learn the complete system for working with athletes' bodies, including how to adapt traditional poses, what language to use, and how to teach function over form, I've created a free workshop called How to Double Your Income Teaching Yoga to Athletes. In it, I share practical techniques for common challenges you'll face teaching athletic bodies. The link is in the description below. Remember, tight hamstrings in athletes aren't a problem to fix, they're a reality to work with. Your job as the teacher is not to force flexibility. It's to help athletes find functional range of motion, release chronic tension, and move better in their sport. Meet them where they are. Use bent knees generously, focus on hip hinge patterns, and teach them to listen to their bodies. That's yoga that actually serves athletes. If this shifted how you think about working with tight bodies, like this video and subscribe for more practical teaching strategies. And drop a comment. What's your biggest challenge teaching athletes with limited flexibility? Let's discuss.